Hi! Feel free to ignore this nice patch of sunburn that I got from a day of sailing. I saw that some booktubers were making the my favorite books of the year so far video, and I've never done those because I don't know, I never felt like that was something I wanted to do, and then this year I thought I want to join in. So I've made a little list. I started by typing notes and going, oh yeah, this will be really easy. It's not easy. I find it so hard because at the end of the year I think it's a little bit easier because I usually pick 10, and for this one I set myself the limit to 5, and I think I could have already picked like at least 7 or 8 that I've really loved, and in the end I've gone by books that have sort of left the biggest impression on me, and books I'd like to read again, and books that I would recommend to other people. That's how I've done my decision making. Let's just get straight into it. It's gonna be a quick video, I think. This is a really big one, and it is Homefire by Camilla Shanzi. This won the Women's Prize for Fiction as well, very well deserved. It was the only one that I'd read from the list, and I was obviously rooting for it. It is a modern retelling of Antigone. It deals a lot with terrorism and radicalization, but also family and betrayal. I thought this one stood out particularly because it is very literary and very beautifully written, and I loved all the characters in it, and I thought the characters in it were so interesting, but it's still totally readable, which I think makes it a really good one, and I've been recommending this all around. Then there's one of the Penguin Moderns, and it is the Shirley Jackson one. I made a video in which I read a bunch of these, and I think this one was just the one that stood out most to me, and it also really made me go, I need to read more Shirley Jackson. So this is why this is getting some extra bonus points. I think my favorite story in here is called Nightmare. With short stories, it's tricky to discuss them because I feel like if I tell you too much, I'm basically giving the whole story away. But anyways, Shirley Jackson, just in general, but also this little Penguin Modern. Because in case you don't know, Shirley Jackson writes really creepy stuff, and that is what I love. Then the interesting thing is, the last 3 are all about relationships, and except for the Shirley Jackson, which has like something a bit like Black Mirror-y in it, there's nothing like dystopian in here, there's nothing apocalyptic. I just feel like I haven't read that much of it yet this year. There's also a book that I wanted to put in here that I've just finished, but I feel like I've talked about it too much recently, so I'm gonna save that one for the end of the year. So Almost Love by Louise O'Neill. I thought this was really refreshing. It talks a lot about whether it's like abusive or manipulative relationships, about keeping secrets. What the last 3 books I'm talking about have in common is like talking about communication and the things we keep secret, and the things that happen to so many people but we don't really talk about. So this is the story of an art teacher who has the relationship with this like handsome rich man. She gets totally obsessed with him. He sort of strings her along to the point where she feels, oh, it's all her fault. And you have a flash forward and it goes back and forward. She's now in a relationship with this guy who is really lovely and like whose mom is a famous artist, and that relationship is not good. They're not nice to each other, even though it feels like it should be this way better relationship, and she is still stuck in the past with this old relationship. It's about that. It's about moving from the countryside to a big city and like feeling out of place when you come back. There's lots of things there that I really enjoyed, so that's definitely on the list as well. I'm really looking forward to see what Louise O'Neill will write next. Then in a very similar vein, and I almost didn't want to put both of these on the list, but I did feel like they needed to be there. Holly Bourne, How Do You Like Me Now? I made a video about this very recently working with a publisher. Again, this is one that has really stuck with me. I read it really quickly, about a young woman again. This is like, she is 25, 26, and then it goes to the future where she's like, I think she's 31. She's written this really successful self-help guide. She's in a 6-year relationship. Everyone thinks she's living the perfect life, but she really is not. She's really unhappy. She's keeping up pretenses. Her friends are sort of all ahead in life is what she feels like. And then her like one best friend, her like last companion, gets a boyfriend as well. And then kind of the topic of manipulation comes into this. While this one is like a lot more emotional, this one is emotional too, but it's also really funny and really relatable. So similar topics, different vibes. And then finally there's sort of a modern classic, I guess, that I can't believe I hadn't read yet, and just really devoured this book. Thought it was really interesting. I think it's one that I'll read again, and it is Ian McEwan's On Chesil Beach. I made a video about the film. I interviewed Saoirse Ronan, which is incredible, so I think that also helps this have like a special place in my heart. Set in the 1960s in Oxford, talking about a young couple getting married, the pressures of the expectations that are on them, and but also the story leading up to how they got married. yeah, just really enjoyed this, and if you haven't read this, would highly recommend it. And this one especially, I think like the writing is just really, really gorgeous. Alright, so those were my 5 favorite books of the year so far. There are a bunch of other ones that I read that I really loved as well. I'm curious if all 5 of these will end up in my 10 favorites of the year. I don't know. I think because I have read 22 books so far, so I still have quite a few to go until the end of the year. And I do think it is easier to put the books that I've read most recently on this list, so that's why I also wanted to do this half-year update. Alright, I'd love to know in the comments what your favorite books are that you've read so far. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Doei!